Hi, how are you? I have no idea how to start this. Welcome to the podcast. My name's Conman167. I've been doing YouTube for a long time. Been a live streamer for, 3, 4 years now, something like that. And I suck at speaking. So, fair warning, this podcast might be really difficult to listen to. I don't know what it is. English, for me, yes, it's my first language, but you wouldn't know it. Not a clue. But you're probably going to look at this title and say, what? Because that's the name of the podcast. What? You're shaking your head, so am I. Yeah. This podcast is literally called What? With an exclamation point and a question mark after that. The reason being is that if Stone Cold Steve Austin were to ever get pissed off at us for calling this podcast What? At least I've got some sort of ground to stand on that it's an exclamation plus a question mark. You know what I mean? What? We'll go with that. Anyways, if you can't tell already, I'm also a rambler. You know, people who've been watching my live streams for a while know I just go off on tangents. I don't really have a direction, and which is the reason why I think it's good for me to have a podcast here, because I think I could talk for whether it's 15, 20, 25 minutes, half hour, 35, 45, 55. You get the idea. I'm going to be able to hit some points along the way and probably entertain you as well. At least I think I'm interesting enough to listen to. And if I'm not, well, then you know what? Screw you. You don't got to listen. That's basically my take right there. But yeah, anyways, today's podcast is essentially just me going over my wrestling story because I'm a wrestling fan, and obviously this is a wrestling YouTube channel. I'm hoping maybe this will attract some other people, whether you're listening to this through Spotify or wherever else it puts it up on, maybe Google Podcast, and probably some of you or a lot of you are going to be watching the video version of this. Hi, how you doing? Yeah, I'm right here. But I'm going to go over my wrestling story here today. How I found wrestling. Why did I start watching this thing? Why? Why did I dive into this weird world that is completely made up, but I love, why? So yeah. Anyways, let's get into this story. Actually, no. You know what? No, not quite into this story, because first up, it's not a sponsor. It's not an advertisement or anything like that. It's just me forgetting to include this in the little intro right here. This podcast is basically also going to be a spot where I talk about the channel, where I talk about the community, the Con Man community, the thing that we've built here for the last 7+ years. That's right. Been doing YouTube for, holy crap, I'm coming up on 8 years this... I'm coming up on 8 years this November. Holy crap. Okay. Well, anyways, yeah, we're also going to cover random parts of our community. We've got community tab posts that we're going to talk about here. Talk about your guys' opinions on wrestling as well. So yeah, there we go. Covered that. Now let's get into this thing. My wrestling story starts back in 2005. So I was a kid who wasn't unpopular, but was very weird and had friends, but because there wasn't a lot of friends in our grade, or not friends, there wasn't a lot of guys in our grade. I believe there was only 8, 9 guys. Maybe I'm remembering that one wrong. Maybe 11 at the most in our grade. And we had a class size of 33 and 32. I know the numbers don't mean anything. I sound like an old grandpa right now. But we had a pretty small class size that was very close. Everything that everybody did, you did together. So through association, I made friends. And through sports, I made friends. But I never really had too many close friends. And I felt like I was a little left out. So I was looking for any ways to grasp onto some of the people around me. And one of my best friends now, who has been on this channel beforehand, Steve, he was essentially the reason I got into wrestling, which is Really weird. And I don't think he even meant to get me into wrestling. So him and my other buddy, Matt, were sitting on the school bus. We were coming home from a field trip. I want to say Canada's Wonderland, the amusement park here in Canada. And I think what happened is they were sitting a couple rows behind me or a row behind me, and they had their earbuds in and were rocking out to some music, just bobbing their head. And so me, the desperate kid for friends, walks over to them on the moving school bus, because of course that's very safe, sits down right next to them and says, "Hey, what are you guys listening to?" And they put into my ears the Rated R Superstar Edge's theme song. And that was the first ever theme song I had ever heard. So sure enough, bobbed my head along to that one. Next one, I believe, was Batista. I think it was Batista. Yeah, the I Walk Alone. By the way, I'm a terrible singer, and you're gonna hear me sing. But that's kind of how I found wrestling. So that very night right there, went home after a great day at the amusement park. It had to have been the amusement park. It's starting to all come back to me now. Went home Friday night SmackDown. Knew SmackDown was on. Went downstairs, asked my parents what TV channel the SmackDown was on, and I probably said the SmackDown because, that's what I was. And they said, "You can't watch that. You can't watch that. You're not allowed. It's too violent. It's too graphic." And honestly, they were right. For a kid in 2005, I would have been 10 years old. Yeah, 10 years old. Would have just turned 10 because it would have been the end of the school year. Yeah, I was too young to watch it probably, but that didn't stop me. I was like, you know what? Like I told you guys at the start of the podcast, screw you, right? I'm going to watch wrestling. So I went upstairs, and this is kind of where I searched every single channel. Now, luckily we had satellite. I was a very lucky kid growing up. Very lucky. And we had satellite, was scrolling through the channels, clicked on it, found SmackDown, and I remember sitting there. The volume must have been at like 2 or 3, maybe 4 at the most. And I was just there watching wrestling, waiting for anybody to kind of come up the stairs. And if somebody came up the stairs, I had Last Channel on, and it was to like the Family Channel. Now, if you guys don't know what the Family Channel is, it's basically Disney here in Ontario. I don't know anywhere else in Canada, but it's definitely here in Ontario, the Family Channel. So I would have a Last Channel, and so like, Lilo and Stitch or Hannah Montana or whatever the frig was on at the time would pop right on, and I wouldn't get in trouble. Now, I'm pretty sure my parents knew, but it was like that for about a year and a half that I hid me watching wrestling. And I know my mom watches this channel, so Mom, how you doing? There's gonna be secrets that come out here in this podcast. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be myself. Sometimes I hide too much of myself. Not in a bad way. Just sometimes I don't shed that wall, which I think this podcast is gonna do here. By the way, this is called What? Because it's going to make you say what. Simple as that. But yeah, anyways, I proceeded to sneakily watch wrestling all the way until probably, I want to say, late 2007. Now, it wasn't obviously every single night that I would watch wrestling. It would be timed for when they weren't home. I would slowly be able to turn the channel on a little bit more often. I would maybe be able to get an hour in before bed, when my parents were either off doing whatever work they needed to do before bedtime, right? And I would get maybe like an hour in there. So then around 2008, because I can remember the entire run of 2008, it started off with a bang with Jeff Hardy versus Umaga in a steel cage match. Maybe that was 2007. Whatever that one is. You're going to hear me make mistakes as well, and I'm not going to be able to correct it because, I can actually. You know what? We can do this. It's my podcast. I can do what I want. So Jeff Hardy versus Umaga. Let me take a look at this. I think this was 2008, right? Steel Cage 2008. Just to make sure my dates are right. Yeah, January 7th, 2008. So right at the start. So at least I know some of my stuff, but don't question your gut, con man. Anyways, fell in love with it even more at that point because that steel cage match just kind of stood out in my memory. And I believe at that point I said, I'm done hiding the fact that I like wrestling. You know, it's 2008 at that point. It's time for me to be able to watch a TV show that I want to watch, right? And not have to flip back to the freaking Family Channel. Kept watching it for a long time at that point, and my love for the business just kept growing deeper and deeper. I started, finding clips on YouTube of Shawn Michaels versus Undertaker at WrestleMania. I found so many awesome things, like every wrestling fan does. I watched documentaries. I watched pretty much all of them that were available at the time. I'm not sure if this was the years that I had Netflix, but the early days of Netflix had so many wrestling documentaries on it that it was the best time to be a wrestling fan. And actually, kind of a funny side note about the Netflix that I used to watch back in the day, it wasn't mine, not even a little bit. There was zero reason for us to be watching this, and I hope I don't get in any trouble for this, but a person that was once in my sister's life was not the brightest of men. And basically, he gave her his password for his Netflix. Didn't change it after they were finito. Until he caught on that there was like a bunch of things in his watch again that he wasn't used to watching. So he tried changing his password, but he changed... Oh my God, I still can't believe the day that we found this out. He only changed the first letter. He capitalized his first name. It wasn't capitalized beforehand, so we got access again for about another year and a half on that Netflix. I went away to, did I go away to school with that Netflix password still? I think I did. Yeah, I totally did. I was away. I was away in first year university still using that freaking Netflix account. That's hilarious. Anyways, we're going to ramble away, but, I just fell in love with wrestling. It was my escape from everything. I could connect to the characters. They were friends to me, and as silly as that sounds, they were friends to me, and I never got to meet them. I've still never met a wrestler to this day, which I would love to do. I would love to be able to sit down and interview a wrestler someday. But I also didn't get to watch pay-per-views growing up. So my love for wrestling stemmed just from Monday Night Raws and Friday Night SmackDowns. I didn't get to watch those pay-per-views. My parents, again, wouldn't allow it. And, looking back on it, I totally understand, because what parent in their right mind is going to give their kid $54.99 to watch a show called One Night Stand? ECW One Night Stand. No, and then to have to fork out $70 for WrestleMania, because that's how much the pay-per-views cost. I totally understand why my parents didn't let me watch pay-per-views growing up, but it took all the way until 2011, basically, before I watched my first actual pay-per-view. And I don't even want to say first live pay-per-view. I think it might have been... No, that's not true. That's not true. I went over to a friend's house one time, a guy named Travis, who I only one time went over to his house, connected through hockey, and he had a WrestleMania VHS, so we popped that in and watched that one. No clue which WrestleMania, but that was my first pay-per-view I ever saw to this day, now that I think about it. But yeah, anyways, wasn't until 2011 that I actually saw my first live pay-per-view, I guess. And that was Money in the Bank 2011. I shelled out my own money to watch it. It was probably the best decision I had ever made, because right up till that point, I was falling out of love with wrestling. I found myself watching CSI Miami over it. I found myself not taping the last hour of Monday Night Raw, taping literally CSI Miami from 10 until 11 p.m. because my bedtime was 10 p.m. and falling out of love with it. So I decided, you know what? Let's buy this pay-per-view. Let's buy it. Let's record it. And let's watch it. See if you can enjoy a full-on pay-per-view, because you're not getting the full experience. You're not getting the good matches. You're getting the filler segments. By the way, that's why that steel cage match, Jeff Hardy versus Umaga, was so important to me. It was a steel cage match on Monday Night Raw. What more do I need to say than that? But I started watching that pay-per-view, and from start to finish, Money in the Bank 2011 literally saved wrestling for me. Without it, I don't know if I'm a wrestling fan. I don't know if I'm a wrestling channel. I don't know if I'm sitting here in this room with that thing behind me, which, by the way, I'm so freaking proud of. And for people who are just listening to this, I'm pointing at the YouTube silver play button. I'm so proud of that thing. 100,000 subscribers because of you guys who like to listen to me talk about wrestling. So thank you for literally changing my life, by the way. But wrestling and Money in the Bank 2011 specifically saved wrestling for me. Wrestling saved wrestling for me. You see what this podcast is going to do? It's literally going to make you say what. So don't worry about it. Say it with me. What? That was weird. That was really weird. No edits, one take. All right. Continuing on here with my story here. So basically after 2008 and watching all the way to 2011, I really gained an appreciation for wrestling and started diving in head first at that point. I started reading Bleacher Report articles, the graded articles, and around this time, I also started the YouTube channel right here, and I kind of got into the Minecraft side of things as well. So between Minecraft and wrestling, those were the two things that dominated my life for a long period of time. Don't get me wrong, I still went out there and I played hockey like 2, 3, 4 times a week, but that's what took up my free time. And hockey, I guess you could say, took up my free time, and I had very little ambitions to pay attention in school, even though I had a teacher for a mother. But still, that's what I focused on, was wrestling and Minecraft, basically. Continued on with the Minecraft channel for a while, but still watched wrestling throughout that entire period. Was deep in just like articles, reading up about wrestlers, watching documentaries like I previously mentioned. Went off to school, continued watching a ton of wrestling documentaries, deepening my knowledge on the subject. And that's when the WWE Network came out, was when I was in my first year of university. And once that came out, NXT, woo, doggy. I'm not Southern, but it brings the Southern out of me, apparently. I loved the WWE Network. The amount of content that was already there at my fingertips that I could just click on, it was my dream, because I'd finished through all the Netflix stuff. I was looking for more content. I was like searching Daily Motion, I'm pretty sure, for any illegal wrestling documentaries I could watch. And then WWE Network came out, and that then dominated my time. I watched pretty much everything you can imagine on there except for actual wrestling matches. For whatever reason, I didn't watch the matches. I watched every documentary you could imagine, but not the matches. Don't know why. So for whatever reason, I guess you could say I loved the storytelling aspect of WWE. I didn't truly love the wrestling part of it. Not until I started doing wrestling coverage here on this YouTube channel, which started in 2016. I made a random Raw review. This was around the time that the Minecraft views had plummeted on this channel, right? I just was like, hey, you know what? I'm going to try something different here. I've got this passion for wrestling. I watch it every single Monday, and I watch back whatever Friday, Thursday, Tuesday, SmackDown it was at the time. I can't remember. And you're going to hear me literally flop my book on the desk. I don't know why I do that. I think I've got some nervous tics. I just about did it again. But basically, I just decided, you know what? Let's jump into doing wrestling coverage. Let's do a raw review. I love reading these Bleacher Report articles with the grades, so why not do a graded video? And it pulled in like 900 to like 1,000 views, I believe, on my very first time. And I was like, hey, that's pretty good. That's pretty solid. You know, this is, I believe I said this is in 2016. I hope I said that correctly. And then I decided, you know what? I'm going to start recording my reactions to it and editing my reactions alongside of the actual video of whatever was playing. I think it was Extreme Rules was the pay-per-view at the time. So I recorded my reactions with my little GoPro and uploaded that. I think I sat with my feet up for pretty much most of the video. I sat up with my feet up showing. I'm pretty sure I was in like some weird track shorts, not a clean room at all. You could tell I didn't think much of the video at all. But yeah, I recorded that and it got a decent amount of views. Like I can't remember if it was like 5,000 views, 7,000 views, might be around 12,000 views at this point, but it got a decent amount right out of the gate. So it's like, okay, we got to start focusing more on wrestling content. And then I live streamed the WWE draft in 2016, pulled 100,000 views. And I know if anybody is listening to this, like, why did this morph into like a thing about the channel? But this is what I want to talk about, my podcast here. I pulled in 100,000 views, and that's when I was like, okay, I'm going to start really studying wrestling and the true wrestling part of it. What makes a wrestling match really good, the psychology in the ring, you know, and I'm still trying to learn it for sure. And I've got a long way to go. You know, I'm only 25 years old, but I love it. I love learning the little things in wrestling, and you hear me talk about the little things all the time during my live streams. It's because the little things that good wrestlers do impress me. It's the things that set them apart from their peers. You know, I started noticing that, and I think that's why people started listening to me talk about wrestling. I noticed the little details inside of wrestling, and you know, for a little bit there, I got away from it. Probably within the last 6 months, I've noticed I haven't paid as close attention to wrestling as I used to. Now, I don't know if that means that I'm falling out of love with it or not, because I definitely don't feel like I'm falling out of love with it. But what I believe that means is that I was getting too worked up in the personal aspect of the wrestlers' lives. You know, the Twitter side of wrestling. So recently I took a step back from that, and I've been so much happier and been appreciating wrestling a lot more for what it is, for what these people are doing inside of the ring. I love it. Anyways, I don't know how I got there, but I did. And that's basically what we're going to be doing here in the What Podcast. The What Podcast. Yeah. So basically anything about the community here that I kind of want to talk about. I've been focusing a lot on the community page of the YouTube channel here. We've been posting a lot of like daily wrestling questions for you guys, and I want you guys to continue to post your answers for those as honestly as you can. I know they're usually simple questions of what do you think is the best tag team of all time, or who do you think is the greatest manager of all time? They're very simple questions, but post why, you know, post your long explanation. I want us to begin a great place to have a conversation, not just during the live streams, whether it be during the during our Discord server when people are logged in over there, whether it be the comment section of this video, whether it be the community tab, and again, whether it be the live stream chat that we have here. I just want this community to feel like it's a little bit closer together, and I think we can do that together. Said together a lot there. Last thing, I guess, before I go away, it's 24 minutes, not bad, almost a half an hour. My story isn't too bad, not too long. Think I covered everything. Before I go away, though, basically want to say, be kind to everybody. That's not what I wanted to say, but I lost my train of thought so clearly. I'm just trying to stall until it comes back, but Don't think it's gonna. All right, then. Well, what? Thank you, everybody, for listening. My name's Connor, Conman167, whatever you want to call me. And make sure you subscribe if you like this video, if you're watching here on YouTube. If you're listening, I don't know what the actual button is there, but hit it, follow me, subscribe, whatever it's called. Do it. Thank you. Love each and every one of you. Take care and have yourselves a wonderful day. Bye-bye.